you don't get the full visual Monty. Effect. Yeah.
We're just going to give up.
This is the Grow Business Podcast with Cory Mosley.
There's no incentive to look pretty.
Right. No.
Watch YouTube only. Watch this on YouTube.
Well, we don't want people that are driving, watching.
We did all this work.
YouTube.
We got these beautiful sport coats on.
Right, exactly.
And all you're doing is listening.
Right.
How dare you?
How dare you?
How dare you listen to what we have to say?
You're cut off.
How will you see this picture of my book on the set?
Right.
If you're just listening.
Right. Well, exactly.
All right. Well, the music's over. Sound like he just pulled it.
Right.
He just pulled it away. Yeah.
That was quick.
Yeah. Well, I guess that is our signal to begin.
Yes, indeed.
Yes. Well, hello. We are happy to have you. You're in the right place if you're looking to grow your business, because this is the Grow Business Podcast. I'm your host, Cory Mosley, and I'm joined by none other than Lon Graham, voice of reason. Lon Graham. Also known as LG007. If you see him riding down the road, see that plate, stop him. Yell out. Say LG007. I'll know we made it.
Right. That's
when you are at the Publix.
Around the corner.
Yeah, and someone's like, LG007.
That's awesome.
Or we go somewhere and they're like, oh, no, please, right this way. The tables get better.
Right, that's exactly right.
Yeah, oh, right this way, LG007.
That's right.
So happy to have you.
Right.
I think that'll work if we call ahead places and say we've got podcast star Lon Graham coming, or like we say that. And we just want to make sure, we can do like, it was alleged that someone we know that's famous did, where he was his own media rep.
Oh.
Like, maybe we call in, or like I call in for you call in for me, and they're coming. We want to make sure they have great accommodations. And like, when you get there, we were at a restaurant years ago, a buddy of mine, fairly good looking guy, I think he would say, chiseled face.
Sure.
And we had convinced everybody in the restaurant that he was like an elite model.
Okay. So
we had all these waitresses coming by, ducking down, because you can't just kind of coalesce around.
Right.
But they would come by, duck down, like, oh, I heard you. And I'd say supermodel, and I'd say his name. I'd say supermodel, do the pose. And he'd do the pose. Like, this might have been like around when Zoolander was out or something. But I say, do the pose, and he hit a pose, and they would be, ooh.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't get any numbers from it back then. I wasn't married at the time. I wasn't dating my wife at the time that this happened. Full disclosure.
Right.
I'm staying out of trouble on that one.
Yes, you are.
Did I say grow business? Did I say the show? Okay. That's great.
What I will say, though, is it's good that you didn't, because you wouldn't have ended up with the fabulous woman that you have in your life.
Excellent. And this is why Lon Graham has this lucrative contract that you have to co-host. This is why your contract's so lucrative here to co-host the show. So, okay, good. Well, we've got another great episode.
Looking forward to it.
Now we've got past the pleasantries. We're going to get into the business.
There you go, in the business.
The business of it. Willie H, did I shout you out yet? Willie H is here. I might have skipped it. Yeah, I know. I distinctly didn't hear that, so I know I didn't shout you out. So in case you all were worried, Willie H is here.
Lord have mercy.
Yeah. People worry with that. We've got another great topic. Of course, we are basing our conversations on my Position for Growth Blueprint and Framework, which you can find more information of by purchasing the Position for Growth book. Now in stores, Amazon, CoryMosley.com. You can order directly if you like people to scribble in your book before you get it. If you order directly from our website, we do that for you.
Right. Signed by the famous host of the Grow Business Podcast.
Yeah, signed by the famous host of Grow Business Podcast. We need to see how we can translate that into something, right?
That's right.
At least get a brother an appetizer or something. Can we throw in something there?
That's right.
Yeah.
We'll call the steakhouse up the street.
Yeah, we'll call the steakhouse up the street and see what they can do. Have them on the show. So, as you know, we're focused on the 5 pillars of business growth.
Yes.
Mindset, sales, marketing, operations, and people.
Yes.
LG, any guess? You did not win last time.
I did not.
Let's assume you've got better odds, because let's assume we're not talking about the same pillar this week that we talked about last week.
Okay.
So that gives you one. You can pull one out.
So now I've got a 25% chance of being right.
You want to take a shot
I do.
All right.
I do. I think we're talking about mindset today.
Oh, is there a you lose? What you got? You got anything really H for? yeah. You're not
I
very
don't
good at
lose
this.
because this conversation is going to be great.
Okay.
I just didn't get it right.
That's that eternal optimism.
That's 100%. That's the
Yes.
mindset piece.
So here's what's funny is you got it right last week. You got it wrong, but this week is what you got wrong last week.
Okay.
We're talking about the people pillar today.
Perfect. Okay.
Yeah, we're using the people pillar.
All right.
Because there's a lot going on right now in the marketplace, this gig economy, this freelancer economy. And there's a lot of questions about really how to do that because many people make it sound so easy. So, really, if you're looking to build a high performance freelancer team, right? Because we're not in all the positions, we're not in a position necessarily, your business may not need full-time employees.
Correct.
Or that may not be economically feasible to do.
Correct.
But we all need help.
Yes.
No one can do it all.
Correct.
Even if you think you can. Right?
You can, just not well.
I believe a client of mine, Timothy Brock, said, I heard him say in an interview recently that it's hard to be everywhere and excellent at the same time.
Yeah.
Or something like that. I'm close enough there. Shout out to Timothy Brock. So we need people.
Yes, we do.
And for a lot of people, that answer is the freelancing world, the Fiverr, the world of Fiverr, the world of Upwork.
Correct.
These type of gig situations. But how do you build a freelancing team, right? Because it requires planning, clear communication. So we're going to talk about effective strategies for small business owners to build high-performance freelance teams.
Excellent.
To work with freelancers.
Like it.
Yeah. So let's get into that.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Work with me, brother.
That's a good one.
What, that one?
Yeah,
Work
that's
with
a
me,
good
brother.
one.
Work with
Yeah, I
me.
like it. That's a good one.
That should be our slogan. Work with me, brother. Work with me. So step one. So in terms of you want to bring on freelancers, that could be for your social media.
Yeah.
That can be, for copywriting. That can be for an executive assistant.
Right.
Any of those type of things. First, define clear objectives and roles.
Yes. 100%.
And that goes beyond. So, because I think what happens and what I see a lot of times is we're making a hire to fix a problem, solve a problem.
Solve a problem. Right?
Yeah. And then we just assume we don't have the proper expectations, right? It's
Right.
problem solved.
Right.
Like, oh, you're gonna do my website.
Right.
And now problem solved without the
Right.
expectations of what does that actually look like? I'm
Correct.
expecting you to do X, Y, and Z. What time frame?
Right.
We work with freelancers. We're working with some people on content.
Right.
So it's like, hey, I'm going to provide you content. Now, my expectation is I'm looking for that content to be live in 24 hours from you receiving it.
Okay.
Is that acceptable? Are those
Right.
terms? Is that a clear objective? I'm going to do X.
Right.
My responsibilities are.
Right.
Your responsibilities are.
Right.
So I think it's very important because people will skip that process in terms of defining those roles when they think they're just making a hire. Oh, I'm going to write copy for you.
Right. Well, and there's, gosh, I mean, there's a piece of overlap in all five pillars. The reality of
Right.
it, though, is that in order to be effective, you've got to be consistent. And the way to be consistent is to establish the expectations and then fulfill those. And you establish them in the form of commitments. This is what we expect. This is what you expect. Here are the things that we'll do. Here's your turnaround time.
That's right.
And if there's editing involved,
What are the outcomes? What are the deadlines? What are the
100%.
quality standards?
Correct. Yes. All that.
I am fortunate. I'm fortunate to say I've probably been working with freelancers for 15 years. I think I've had my Upwork account for that long.
Okay.
In terms of that's a main source where I will typically go to your freelancers. And I have this is acrylic. I'm going to knock on acrylic because I don't have wood next to me.
Right.
But I've gotten good at filtering out the people that. Now, I mean, and I look at those things, right? I look at their ratings. I look at their earning on Upwork. You can look at the percentage of earnings. You can look at the feedback, some of the obvious things. But I also look for, and I don't even know, I gotta go back and look at all this, but I might be skimming ahead. But like, I also look for the ability to follow directions.
Okay.
I will ask a question,
Right.
or something specific,
Right.
in before you submit a proposal or you reach out. If they completely ignore that, I don't even consider them,
Right.
because that tells me I understand this. Certain things have to be templated
Right.
if you're bidding on stuff because you're bidding on a lot of projects or trying to get a lot of opportunities. But if you're not taking the time to review truly what I'm looking for,
Right.
or I'll look for something and that description of what I'm looking for is not even in their like title. Like I'm looking for a Shopify expert to troubleshoot, some work for a client.
Right.
And then they've got like expert at email marketing in their headline.
Right.
No. Decline.
Well, and what this is an example of, Cory, is that you've clearly defined expectations and then you're willing to live up to those.
Right.
So you've said, these are the things that are important to me. Now I'm going to take a step back. What you said is, I've been working with freelancers and contracted people for 15 years. What that means is that you have experience doing that. And throughout that experience, you've identified things that matter to you most. And those are the things that you prioritize. I will say this, and I say this to sales leaders all the time. You want to get good at hiring? Hire.
Right.
Hire people. Now, have your priorities. And as you hire people and you learn what you get, you'll evolve. Those priorities will evolve and you'll define those differently. But the reality of it is you're never going to make a perfect hire.
Right.
So you can get better at it, but the way to get better at it is to do it. So like you, if you're going to start hiring people, get some guidance and get some consultation, maybe even call the Mosley strategy group and say, hey, can you help me navigate through this?
Right.
But the reality,
that's highly advised.
That's highly advised. That's a high.
This guy can help me.
I really like that one. Well done, William. But that's the point, right? In order to get better at anything, you got to do it. But you talked about the most important thing in that is define your priorities.
Right.
And then be willing to stick to them.
Right. No, I like it. Yeah. Clear objectives, roles. Number 2, skill. So I kind of said it. Well, select the right freelancer, right?
Correct.
Selecting the right, like obvious, right? Yeah. Select the right. But when we say that, we're really talking about skill fit, culture fit,
right?
Also, not just can they do the job in that world,
right?
Because again, you are building a team. I think another mistake is these are still people.
Yes.
So you want people who can also merge in. When we work with freelancers, we'll get the whole team. We'll get my internal team and our freelancers on calls, on Zooms together. Yep. And if we're not, if they're all business, like you'll never survive working for me or working on projects with me if you have no sense of humor.
That's true.
Right? Because that's just not going to happen.
Right.
There's a number of, freelancers, you don't have any HR restrictions there. But that's a sidebar. But you're never going to survive in that situation. Correct. So it's important to me that I work with people who have a sense of humor.
Right.
Like that's a culture fit in terms of my culture. Correct. If you're offended by every little thing, I'm not changing.
Right.
Right. So I've got to make decisions in terms of where the fit that allows me to do my best work. Because it can't be, Joe's going to be on the call. Right. So now no fun for anybody.
Right. Don't say that.
Right. Because Joe gets upset easily.
Right.
Joe, nice haircut. Oh, what do you mean? Do you not like my haircut? Do you like my haircut? What does that mean? Like, that's kind of personality that's not going to work for me.
Exactly.
Right? Like, what are you actually saying? I don't know exactly what you're saying. Right. So that piece of the puzzle, ultimately doesn't work for me. So, all right. So clear objectives. So skill fit, culture fit. Yeah. And then, one of the things in that selection process is a lot of people are afraid to test. Do the test project. Let me see what you can do or what you can't do. Like, you know what I mean?
Sure.
Like, give me some examples of that in terms of, can you do the job?
Correct. And it's specific to you and to what you're trying to accomplish. That's different than work that they've done for other people. It's specific to you. Say, hey, look, here's what I'm working on. How would you make this look, or what would you do with it?
Right.
And have them come back to you. And look, you're not going to give them an entire project and get their work for free. We're not talking about that.
And you can pay for the. You can still agree to do that.
Right.
So
I'll pay you for an entry level to this project, the starter kit.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Absolutely. Because you get a feel for how they think, you get a feel for their creativity, you get a feel. So that's a great idea. And a lot of people won't do that.
Yeah, no. And so again, you end up with a bad hire.
Correct.
And then you got to work it out or rework it later. Right. So that's just, it's got to pass the smell test. It's got to, you got to be able to check some boxes, right? That makes sense. So yes, qualification, right? Did you evaluate their portfolio? Like I'm all in it. I'm clicking on if they provide, and most of the time I'm asking, particularly if it's creative. Yeah. Because that's so interpretative. Everybody can have a different, it's not a straight line. It's not like, just database or something that, is duplicatable. So skill, culture, and test and do test projects. Number 3, we're making good time.
So far.
so far. Can go off the rails at any point. So how you communicate. Using clear communication channels.
Yes. Okay.
So are you bringing them into your system? And if you don't have one, getting one for that. So you're not just relying on some random email, right? So are you using Slack? We put our freelancers on our Slack channel. Okay. Right. So we can speed up communication, centralize communication. And that could be, maybe you're on Asana, or maybe you're on Monday, or maybe you're on some type of project management tool or something like that. Bring those people in. Don't keep it separate. Right. So you have communications streamline, regular check-ins and feedback. That's the subset in 3. So clear communication channels, your tools, having regular check-ins, and what is the feedback loop for improvement?
Well, in the world that we live in now, and certainly, you've been doing this for a long time, but what really changed the dynamic of freelancers and the amount of freelancers that are available was COVID. And what we saw was this disbursement of talent really all over the world. Right. There are people that went to work remotely in Sweden that have their headquarters is in New York, or their headquarters is in Denver, Colorado, but they didn't need to be there.
Also, a lot of people who got put in the trick bag who thought the work would be virtual forever.
Correct.
Moved. Right. And then got the email. Time to come back in the office. You have 90 days.
Right. Well, and my point in saying
and
that.
And they live in Colorado now.
Well, exactly.
And the office is in Florida.
Right. Well, my point in saying that too, though, it goes back to your point of communication, Cory, and how are you communicating? Yeah. Understanding that people are in different time zones. They're on different schedules. Their expectations. So what are the expectations that you're communicating with each other, and allowing the communication channels to be inclusive of that? Allow them to do things on their time with an established and agreed upon deadline. Yep. But they need to be able to communicate in ways that don't require you immediately. Right.
That's right. That's right. And again, so, in this conversation about high performing freelance teams, this isn't an either or. This is the formula right here, right?
Correct.
Having the clear objectives and roles.
Correct.
Selecting the right ones by considering fit, skill, testing them out to make sure.
100%.
Having them now come in, right? People think once you go freelancer, once you go not full-time employee or whatever, that there's no onboarding.
Right.
That you get to skip all that. There is no, and I joke about there not being an HR. Right. You might not have the state, federal regulations of that idea, but the ideals of that. Right. What is acceptable, not acceptable? When do you expect work to be done or not done? Because a lot of that can run very close. Now, consult your, attorneys and IRS people. But a lot of these run very parallel in terms of, like an employee, virtual assistants.
Correct.
Is another thing where you have people working full time for you. Many times that's overseas, so you don't have the same onshore things. But VAs right now is a service, correct, is a SaaS situation, correct, where you have multiple people and you're paying a service for a service provider, but they're servicing your account 30 hours a week or 40 hours a week. But so having that onboarding, having you. The classification of how you're working with somebody doesn't negate or allow you to simply eliminate part of the process that someone should have coming in, particularly if it's long term. If you've got one thing that needs to be done, you're hiring somebody, it's a one and done. But if you're an ongoing strategy,
Right.
it becomes very important.
Yeah, if it's a long-term recurring relationship, the way I like to look at it especially in terms of whether we call them contractors or remote work, the people that we're talking about hiring that aren't directly hired, but they're 1099 or however we're doing it, is standards.
Yep.
You have to establish standards up front. You're not going to do the full HR onboarding like you would if you're bringing an employee in, because you've got things that don't apply.
Sure.
But you still need to establish standards up front. What are the expectations of behavior, responsiveness, communication?
I mean, that's a big one.
Yeah.
Like understanding when you're going to get, what does that workflow look like?
Correct.
Because on the other side of that, you've got a freelancer who may have no idea how to actually run their own business.
Right.
So they've got, we had a brilliant person on our creative side that came from a big agency, a New York City agency. Wow. She had great work. Yeah. And she was doing great work for us for a time. But she decided, I want to do more yoga. So then the stuff got further out.
Right.
Because again, the viewpoint is freelancing is I'm on my own time and I'm on, not if you want clients.
Right.
But it was okay, great. You know what? I can have this for you next week. Well, wait, next week? I used to have stuff back in 24, 48 hours. Oh, well, I'm going to go up to the mountains. My boyfriend and I are going to get away. We want to, get regrounded or whatever. Right. Then she became a yogi. I don't know if there's is there a female, male version of someone becoming a yoga? Is yogi universal? Yeah. So then she became a yogi. She's like, I want to pursue my passion of yoga. So I'm really going to be cutting back from the work.
Right.
Right. So, but there was I didn't have the right expectation. It changed. So you've got to be kind of prepared for that and looking for that too.
Right.
And you already led into, you actually said it without saying it. The fourth one, which is this idea of creating some SOPs, some standard operating procedures, having clear guidelines, and then holding them to those deliverables and consistency.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and for both, right? For you, so that you can run your business, because this is contributory to your success. Is why you're hiring them. For them too, they've got. Well, remember when we're hiring. When we're hiring contract workers, when we're hiring people that aren't part of our organization, but they're doing very specific things for our business, they're doing that for multiple organizations. Mm-hmm. So if you don't have clear expectations, you fall into the category of wherever you are on their priority list.
Right.
And if they've got somebody who comes in with a bigger contract that's going to offer them more money, you may fall on your priority list if you haven't established some standards and some expectations.
That's right.
Of turnaround time, communication, editing, all of the things that we're talking about.
Right.
You want to have, and regular communication allows you to keep that train moving forward, and you don't get stuck.
Yeah.
So you're less likely to have somebody, if you talk every week, you're going to find out much earlier on that they're going on a trip to the mountains.
Right, sure.
That their interests are changing.
Right. Their version of vacation, right? I mean, just meaning,
all of those things.
Again, not the formality of but if you have if you're not going to be able to stay consistent to this, or you have things coming up, here's our notice. We need 2 weeks notice if you're not going to be available.
Right.
It can't be 2 days. Oh, just so you know, it's Wednesday. Oh, just so you know, I'm going to be gone for the rest of the week. Right. Again, if you don't establish that going in, that's how people get in the jam. Now you're working on a client, depending on how you're using your freelance team, there could be deadlines, client things tied to that. And you don't want to be embarrassed by someone who ultimately doesn't have to be held accountable. The customer doesn't want to hear that I'm late on a deliverable because my freelancer called out. Or
that bad.
Yeah, exactly. That bad. They don't want to hear that.
No, they don't. They don't care.
Yeah, correct. And what are you doing? You're gonna get in the car and go to Bangladesh or Romania or the UK or Canada, or if you're in Virginia and my freelancing in California, am I going there?
Right.
I mean, we all know the story where I did have to jump in the car, but that was 25 minutes away. So that was very convenient. We had to go muscle somebody. Check. I don't know what episode that was, but if you haven't heard that episode, you want to know more about that.
That's worth.
I am from New Jersey. Let's not forget.
Yeah. And the reality of it is that just like a builder that's that subcontracts out certain parts of the work, right? Your client is buying the services that you provide. They're buying it from you. They don't care who's on your team delivering it.
Right.
And they do care who's not delivering it. And if you've got somebody on your team that's not able to deliver, then what they care is that you are they're your client. And so you're the person that has to answer for that.
So, and that's good. Good. Have you seen this list?
I have ESPN, buddy.
Ah, okay. What's the score? All right. So what's interesting, because we talked about the effect on external relationships in terms of the client. So number 5 is actually focus on building relationships internal.
Yeah.
Right?
Correct.
Your freelancer is a part of your team.
Yes.
There are things you can do no matter what the distance that can bring them into the fold. Right. Are you celebrating something? Are you doing these different things? You know, when we launched the network 2 years ago, right, we recorded a video.
Yeah.
Right. One of our webmasters is overseas.
Yeah.
We recorded a video.
That's right.
And you know, thanking him for his work, thanking him for that. I had him record a video saying hello to the team. And though, you know, for obvious reasons, he couldn't be here, you know, but he's happy. He's excited to be part of the team. Just that little nuance.
Right.
You know, and if it's closer in proximity, I want to include them. You know, we recognize birthdays of our freelancers.
Yeah.
We recognize their children's birthdays.
Oh, that's great.
And folks, that's not hard to do. That's what the computer's for. Right. This little computer, the cloud.
Right.
Which, of course, there is no cloud. It's just another guy's computer.
Right.
But that's what all that's for.
Right.
Willie H looks like he's got a tricky trigger finger there. No? Nothing? It's been a minute since you dropped something on us. You got nothing in the chamber there?
One thing.
Got nothing. Okay. Trust and respect, incentivizing work, and finding ways to build a personal connection. Because that's how you get the extras.
Right.
People that will do more work for you.
Right.
Will stick out, will go longer, will, you know, I know technically I'm supposed to stop here, but this is a good relationship. I like this relationship. I want to continue to build it because they're people.
Right. And when you're supportive of each other, you make each other better.
Yeah, sure.
The other thing I'll say too, and I don't know if it's in, you know, we're talking about standards. It may be later on the list, but clearly identify reporting relationships. Who are they communicating with?
Right.
For sign off? Who has the right to say, okay, this is exactly what we're looking for. Let's move forward with it. Because as the business owner, you can't manage all of these relationships.
Right.
So identify who has the ability, who has the authority, and clearly describe that to both, to the people that have the ability to sign off on it and to the freelancer.
Yes.
Voice of reason.
All right, next up, we are on the efficiency train today.
Maybe
we got to get to the airport. Somebody's got somewhere to go. So if we're ever too long-winded, folks, that just means we've got plenty of time.
That's right.
Okay, so next one's an interesting one.
Okay.
And I think we do this here with some of our freelancers. Leverage time zones.
Yeah.
So if you want to keep a 24/7 workflow, pick freelancers from different time zones.
Okay.
Which allows you to keep, right? So there's people that we work, there's projects that we put in, and then we go to bed on East Coast time, and we wake up and the project's completed.
Right.
So, but there's also freelancers we work with that mirror our working hours. So they're available during that, you know, classic 9 to 5, 9 to 6 in our time zone. So having that certainly gives you more options to keep that workflow moving.
Yeah, and that goes back to the first one, Cory, is really defining what you're trying to accomplish, right? Is, okay, there are things that we need to be able to do that need to be immediately responsive. And there are things that we need to do or that we're accomplishing as part of our business that do have, and especially creative elements, those things just take time because that's part of the deal. But by having it set up so that the person can be creative on their time, you send it out, you go finish the day, you go home, you go to bed, you get up in the morning and it's in your inbox. You've done that intentionally, and that's the expectation because you've allowed for the creativity and you still have quick turnaround time for you.
Right. Yeah. 100%. I like that. Number 7.
Okay.
This is something I think definitely gets overlooked. And again, if you're working with services that don't do this, you need to have it for yourself.
Right.
Ensuring legal compliance and contracts.
Yeah.
Having detailed contracts.
Yes.
Payment terms.
Yes.
Intellectual property rights. Who owns the stuff?
Right.
Confidentiality.
Right.
Like, I don't want to end up on somebody's reel if I didn't authorize that. Like, if I didn't know that, like, or using things that may have been created exclusively for us that now is in your portfolio. That doesn't mean you shouldn't allow them to do that, but you need to spell out what's acceptable there. You don't want someone coming back going, "Oh, well, I created that logo for you.
Right.
Now here's another bill because you continue to use it, or you're using it on your website, and I didn't give you a release. I didn't give you ownership."
Yeah, and those are two big ones. One, release of information.
Mm-hmm.
IP is huge, and the non-disclosure is huge. So that release of information, NDA.
Yep.
But those two things, especially when you're hiring creative freelancers,
Mm-hmm.
there's a creative element to it.
Sure.
And you've got to clearly define who owns the finished product and what you can do with it. And I've worked with, I've done some freelance work and some sales work, and and part of that piece is talking to somebody. Well, if you are our client in the agreement, you can either agree to allow us to use the work that we do together to promote our business.
Right.
And that's a part of it. And there are agreements that allow that. And then there are others that intentionally provide confidentiality because of the nature of the client.
Right.
And so, it for all the right reasons, it doesn't matter what it is, as long as it's spelled out. And once it's spelled out in writing, then that's your standard.
Yep.
That's your guideline. Those are your expectations that we're all talking about.
Boom. Woo. When the church say amen. Amen. Number 8, can you believe we only have 2 left?
Yes.
All right, number 8, provide tools and resources.
Yes.
So there may be some things that they're coming into the relationship with. There may be some things, meaning they already have, they've got Adobe Premiere to do editing already. So you don't need to supply that. But there may be tools and resources that they will need to complete their task.
Right.
That you have to make sure you have ready to go. Because again, if you want this to work and you want fluidity and congruence, you don't want stop start. It's not, wait, hold on, I'll get you this. Now it's 2 days. Oh, I need to get you an email. Well, now I didn't get around to it. And now they're waiting. And now you're creating issues. And freelancers don't have the luxury of employees who know on Friday or the 15th or the 30th or whatever, certain things are going to happen. They may not eat.
Right.
If they don't have an influx of business or consistent business. So not having business or being, put behind in terms of scheduling or what they think is going to happen, becomes important. So if do they need access to your file sharing platform or their collaboration apps? Is there training that needs to be done? Do you need to do a Loom video showing them exactly what you want them, to do and how you want them to do it?
Right.
Versus just, oh, well, I hired you. You should know how to do this already. Well, that doesn't mean I know how to do it in the context of what I'm doing for you.
Right.
Or where it needs to go or how it needs to, be done. So,
right. Excuse me. Yeah. The reality of it is it's a relationship where y'all are working together.
Right.
And the only way you can be successful is if you're both successful. And that requires tools and that requires things. And to your point, freelancers, sometimes they're eating mac and cheese on a good weekend. And so they're choosing, they may not have the level of a financial ability to invest in upper level tools or premium type tools. Like you said, an Adobe premium tool or some of these other premium communication and creative tools. And so if they're going to work on projects for you that you have certain standards and expectations, you need to be able to provide access to it.
And don't be afraid to so 9 is measure performance.
Yeah.
Having accountability.
Yes.
And don't feel, listen, this idea of the freelance, it's terrifying to me in a certain extent because I'm a very hands-on.
Right.
I want to be And I want the energy of the people.
Right.
So like dealing with somebody who's 3,000 miles away or 300 miles away or 30 miles away, they're still not in front of me. Right. So you've got to have some checks and balances. And there are great tools out there like Toggle, Toggl, Hubstaff. These are proof of work, productivity. Like literally you can record the screen while they're doing work.
Right.
Time management. So, because the other thing is, depending on how your deal is structured, I need to make sure people are working. Like I have an expectation, and folks, do a little research on what you want done.
Right.
So you know if somebody is smoking you.
Right.
Or giving you not giving you the real deal.
Right.
Right? I know how long it should take to do X, Y, and Z in a lot of different instances.
Right.
So when that does not happen, I go, somebody's not doing what they're supposed to do.
Right.
And you know what? You may create, it may be like we have PIP plans in the corporate world, right? Performance and performance improvement plans. I might need to put and so it might be a tier. Maybe I don't start out with you having to use productivity software but if I'm getting that situation, maybe it's like, hey, I'm not sure the productivity matches the investment, or if you're paying them hourly or whatever. Again, if you're working outside of like an Upwork has all these things built in.
Right.
But if you're finding freelancers from other ways, or sites that aren't really invested in the actual management of the process, but just want to connect you, like, getafreelancer.com or something where they're not providing extra stuff. This gives you an opportunity. That might be step 2.
Right.
Hey, if you want to keep working for us, we're going to need you to sign up for this program, and so we can monitor productivity and KPIs and those kinds of things. Right.
And what that does for you too, Cory, there's 2 ways to look at all of it, right? One is really evaluating performance. The other is this type of communication reveals what they may be missing in terms of tools.
Right.
So if you go to them and say, hey, well, why is it taking so long? Well, what are you using? Well, you don't have the tool that allows you to expedite this.
Right.
So let's get it. So these types of things reveal some gaps in their ability to support you at that level of expectation. And so you can create either change your expectations, or you can make those tools available so that they live up to your expectations.
This might be a guy I want to work with. I think Willie H loves that. I think that might be his favorite, because there's some that have left the station. I don't know why we don't use them anymore or whatever. But
we used them as bait when we went fishing.
Willie H we'll talk about that. You guys are going to tag team me.
What's that?
I see you guys aren't going to have a tag team here.
Oh,
you're. That should be against the law. That was good right there. All right, we've come to the end, my friend. We've come to the end, my friend.
Right.
So we talked about building a relationship. The other piece is maintaining a long-term relationship, having consistency in the collaboration. Maybe even placing some of your best people on retainers and regular things outside of work today, paid today kind of stuff.
Right.
But hey, we're going to start this ongoing relationship. One of the things I really like is several of the people I work with, I've been working with for years.
Right.
My web developer, I think 7 years.
Okay.
I've been working with him.
Yeah.
So this is established. He was not married and he was married. He was married with no kids. Now he's married with 2 kids.
Right.
And even seeing, I got the pictures from the birthday party from when they turned 1. I got the pictures, so that's just that's a relationship.
Right.
And that matters if you're in a clutch. If you keep it clinical, then everything will be clinical.
Correct.
If you don't create an environment, so, does he have to answer me if I need him at midnight his time? No. Will he if he gets the mention advantage? Yes.
Right.
That's purely because of relationship. I couldn't hold him responsible. I don't have an agreement with him that says you must answer my Slack messages 24 hours a day or else. Right. But as a courtesy, as an idea of help, if something goes wrong or crashes or something happens with a client, I can go, hey, I've got an urgent situation here.
Yeah. And, and it's, when you think of it in those terms, Cory, think of it as somebody that you've worked with for 5, 6, 7 years.
Right.
If you came to the office together and you worked together, this is a different relationship from a location and 2 from the way you contract your relationship for freelancers.
Right.
But the reality of it is that it goes back to something you said earlier in this conversation is there's still people that have personal lives, have people in their family, people get sick, people celebrate things, people accomplish things.
Yep.
All of those things, think about that in terms of all of those things you would celebrate and recognize and really be involved with together if they came to your office every day and you work together in the office every day. It's a little bit more challenging when you don't see them every day. But all of the things that we're talking about in terms of how to work with freelancers, make that easier.
Mm-hmm. Woo. I like it. I think we've got through it. I think, folks, I think that's great in 35 minutes.
There's one thing I do want to add, but
go ahead. I was going to say in 35 minutes, I think that's great. There's a specific plan here. It's not conjecture. It's, here are those steps.
Right.
Rewind this, pause it, freeze it, come back to it. Because everybody at some point in time, unless you're a large company, if you're a small business or solopreneur, you're going to work with some kind of freelancer, short-term, long-term. And if you want to be more efficient and also ultimately build a team.
Right.
Some people are in a position that they could make full-time hires. I'm not trying to keep anybody from getting a job, but some may make the decision that I'd rather put together, it's just more cost effective and makes more sense for my needs to build. Some people have 65-person freelancer teams.
Correct.
You got to run that just like a 65-person employee situation. So don't have an opinion about what's necessary or steps that you think you can skip. If you want to have, the title of this or our topic today wasn't a freelancer team. Our topic was not some freelancers. It was high performing, to have a high performing freelancer team, people working together, strong productivity, increasing, business opportunities.
Correct. Absolutely. And a different example I'll give from the world of healthcare, and I worked in surgical sales for a long time. Mm-hmm. There are nurses that work in the operating room.
Yeah.
And they work as nurses in the operating room. Some of them are fully employed by the hospital where they're working. Some of them are what are called traveling nurses.
Yep.
And they are contracted for 13 weeks.
It's a big 13-week
contract.
Yeah.
Right. And there's value, and they can work side by side in the same operating room under different circumstances.
Right.
And so the reality of it is there's benefits to both. It just depends on what you need for your business and what you need for the people that are working with you. The thing that I will say that I wanted to add at the end here is this, that we didn't talk about. There are things that you can hire out to get people to do. What you can't hire out is the one thing that you do that nobody else can do. Don't try and hire out your area of expertise just because you think you need to spend more time doing something else. If it's the thing that you do that only you can do, hire out the administrative work, hire out the social media, hire out some of the communication piece. But remember what you do and only you can do, and don't ever get away from that. You still need to be the person doing that.
And you better believe it.
What a great way to wrap up the episode. I love that. And listen, if you want more tips, tactics, and strategies, particularly around the people pillar, I encourage you to pick up your copy of Position for Growth, now shipping on Amazon.com, also CoryMosley.com. Also visit the new CoryMosley.com to learn how we're helping businesses and organizations get positioned for growth. Great tips, always great insight from you, LG007. We appreciate you, and we appreciate all of our listeners.
Yeah, thanks for coming, and thanks for coming back.
Yeah, refer a friend.
That's right. Bring a friend next time.
Business owners know other business owners, and everybody should be listening to the Grow Business Podcast. We 100%. Thank you. We thank you. We thank you. If you've been streaming us on audio, hey, check us out on YouTube.
He's got a nice jacket on today.
And Lon has a nice jacket on.
Thank you.
And he's got the money shirt on. You know how somebody's wearing a money shirt. They've got some extra detail in there. They've got the buttons have a certain sheen and match to them. Those aren't factory buttons that are on the deal there, okay? We call that looking like money, all right? That's what we're talking about. Check us out on YouTube as well, but we appreciate you everywhere and anywhere that you listen. This has been another episode of the Grow Business Podcast. I'm Cory Mosley. He's LG007. And on behalf of myself, Lon, and Willie H, thank you for listening. And we'll see you next time. Willie H, take us out. Just in time, my battery enters the last 5% of my life. Yeah. I better had known this was you better know your material because the computer is turning off.
Well, the computer's got to rest and sleep too, right?
That's right. Yeah. It's always that way.
You know, this framework of building a conversation around pillars.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm telling you this from my perspective. It's good. I like it because it really defines a lane.
Yeah.
And for us too. For us, it's the way.
Does it fit and is it consistent with it?
The way we tell those stories. In this lane, because we can tell one story to apply to 10 different things.
Correct.
What part of the story we tell, and how does it apply?
That's right.
So, yeah.
Good work.
No, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Great job. Appreciate it.
Appreciate you.
You didn't even comment about my vitamin D.
Oh, this is your version of a 10, I suppose. Yeah.
It's 2.5 days worth.
Good. What did you have a good